The drama begins with the entry of the male lead, whose name is Seon. He had come to an event hosted by the British ambassador, where shortly after, the female lead of the drama, Huiju, also joins. Huiju cannot speak and is a sign language interpreter. Seeing Huiju with Seon, everyone starts gossiping. Who is this girl, and what is her relationship with him? This leaves Huiju very confused. At that moment, Seon tells her to relax and says, "These people are not looking at you. They are looking at me. They want to know about you, but you must not let anyone know about our relationship." He then adds, "Don't do anything that could spread rumors about us." Then, a flashback from the previous day is shown, where Huiju was at a news studio and was about to finish her work and go home. Suddenly, Seon arrives live, and the second female lead of the drama, Yuri, becomes very happy upon seeing him because Seon is a very famous presidential spokesperson, and Yuri is his big fan. On the other hand, Huiju becomes very angry upon seeing him live and flips him off by showing her middle finger. Then, we learn that Huiju and Seon had gotten married 4 years ago, which no one except their families knew, and they had kept it a secret. In the next scene, Huiju is sitting with her mom and mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law says Huiju should support Seon at tomorrow's event, and no one should find out what the actual relationship between Huiju and Seon is. In fact, it would be better if Huiju remains silent. Then she leaves, and Huiju's mom starts scolding her, saying, "This was bound to happen. After all, you stole someone else's husband. Do your job well, and don't ruin your father and father-in-law's reputation." Next, Huiju is driving home when her car suddenly goes out of control and comes to a complete stop. She realizes that someone has hacked her car because she cannot open the doors or windows. Just then, she sees a truck approaching, but she cannot move her car or get out of it. She narrowly avoids an accident. Then, a stranger is shown on the road, holding a strange phone, who comes and opens Huiju's car door. Meanwhile, Seon receives a call. When he answers, a voice says, "I will kill your wife." Seon responds, "What nonsense is this? Who are you?" At that moment, his phone battery dies, and after charging it, he first calls Huiju's mom to ask about Huiju. She tells him, "Yes, she was with me and left for home a while ago." Hearing this, Seon relaxes. He then tells his assistant, "Trace this number," and just then, the call comes again. Seon says, "So, did you kill my wife? Do you even know who I am and who my wife is?" The kidnapper replies, "I have a knife to your wife's throat. I will kill her." Seon says, "I don't have time for your jokes, so stop making these prank calls." The stranger then says, "This is not a joke. I will really kill her." Frustrated, Seon says, "Fine, then kill her." The kidnapper gets angry and says, "Not now. Right now, I need to talk to you about money." Seon replies, "Keep making whatever demands you want. I don't care," and hangs up. This angers the kidnapper greatly, and he starts strangling Huiju with a wire, saying, "What kind of husband do you have who doesn't care about you at all? I will kill you if he doesn't answer my call now." He calls again, but Seon doesn't answer. Enraged, the kidnapper slashes Huiju's throat and says, "This phone is very special. Your husband cannot trace this number. Unless I talk to him for 10 minutes and he won't recognize my voice because the voice changer feature is on. I had planned everything perfectly, even hacking your car, but your bastard husband ruined everything." Saying this, he calls Seon again, and this time Seon answers. The kidnapper says, "I told you I would kill your wife," to which Seon replies, "Then kill her. When she's dead, send me the body." Hearing this, the kidnapper becomes furious, and Huiju also gets very angry upon hearing this. She starts driving the car very fast, causing the kidnapper to crash and lose consciousness. In the next scene, Huiju returns home and tends to her injuries, preparing dinner. Just then, Seon arrives and, seeing Huiju safe, relaxes and says, "Oh, you're alive. You know, I got a prank call today saying they would kill my wife, but you're perfectly fine." Hearing this, Huiju becomes extremely angry. Just then, Seon receives a call from his assistant, who tells him, "The number from which the kidnapper called can only be traced if the call lasts for 10 minutes. He also reminds him, "There's an event tomorrow where you'll need an interpreter because the brand ambassador's wife cannot speak or hear." Seon then asks Huiju to accompany him as an interpreter tomorrow. Huiju does not respond. In the next scene, Huiju's mom calls her and scolds her, saying, "You still haven't made a place in your husband's heart." After this, Huiju starts thinking about her wedding day, and a flashback shows Huiju sitting in her wedding dress. Seon arrives and tells her, "This dress isn't yours. Take it off. Our marriage will only be in name. There will be nothing husband-wife-like between us, and we must keep this marriage private." Huiju starts removing everything, and Seon gives her his coat and a marriage contract. According to the contract's rules, Huiju cannot ask for a divorce or reveal her identity as Saeon's wife. If she breaks any of these rules, she will have to pay 2 billion. Huiju signs the contract, and Saeon puts a ring on her finger saying, "Don't be under the misconception that you're my wife. You will stay with me only as a hostess." The flashback ends, and the drama returns to the event shown at the beginning. Seeing them together, everyone starts gossiping, but ignoring them, Saeon takes Huiju to meet the ambassador. Whatever conversation happens between Saeon and the ambassador, Huiju translates it into sign language for the ambassador's wife. Seeing this, people assume she is Saeon's wife, but Huiju tells them in sign language, "I am just an interpreter." Saeon then tells the ambassador, "My wife also has a disability, but because I work for the government and face many attacks, I don't keep my wife with me to keep her safe. My wife is my weakness." Hearing this, Huiju becomes very angry. Just then, Saeon receives a message from his assistant who tells him, "If the kidnapper calls me again, I will keep him engaged for 10 minutes so we can trace his location." In the next scene, Huiju is drinking heavily. Saeon stops her, saying, "Don't drink so much." She types on her phone, "I'm leaving now because your work is done." He replies, "No, not yet. As long as I'm here, you can't leave." This angers Huiju, and she starts signing, "Do you think I'm crazy? I have no emotions. I don't get hurt. What did you say about caring for your wife? You've only hurt me." Finally, she insults him in sign language, which Saeon partially understands. She then says, "I think the wife you're talking about isn't me," and leaves. In the next scene, Saeon receives a call from the same kidnapper. Saeon says, "My wife is completely safe. I was very busy yesterday, so I couldn't talk to you properly. Today, I have plenty of time. What do you want?" He says this to keep the kidnapper engaged for 10 minutes and trace his location. The kidnapper says, "Seems like you have nothing to do at the party. That's why you have so much time for me." Hearing this, Saeon is shocked and starts looking around. The kidnapper says, "You can't even imagine how close I am to you." Saeon asks, "What do you want?" The kidnapper replies, "A while ago, you were asking me how I would hurt your wife." Hearing this, Saeon starts searching for Huiju everywhere. Just then, he sees a man talking on the phone upstairs. He goes to catch him, but it's someone else. The kidnapper starts laughing and says, "Are you scared?" Saeon replies, "You're a loser hiding and talking. You can't ruin anything for me. By the way, have you even seen my wife? Do you know who my wife is?" The kidnapper replies, "Yes, Huiju is not your real wife. The one you were supposed to marry was Mr. Hong's eldest daughter, but she ran away a day before the wedding, and no one knows anything about her. But to save your family's connections, you married their younger daughter." Saeon is shocked because only his family knew this. He then asks the kidnapper, "What do you want?" The kidnapper says, "First, you must leave Huiju." Just then, we see that the person on the phone is none other than Huiju herself, and she can speak. Due to the voice changer on the phone, her voice sounds like a man's to Saeon. In a flashback, we see Huiju getting very angry at Saeon's words and telling the kidnapper, "Call this bastard back. I want to say something to him." But due to overspeeding, the kidnapper had crashed and lost consciousness. Huiju had taken his phone, and now in the present, she says, "If you don't divorce Huiju by tomorrow, I will ruin your dad's election, or if you want, this matter can be settled for 2 billion yuan. Saeon replies, "You seem to forget who you're blackmailing. I'm Saeon. I'll prove your words false in 2 minutes. You can't ruin anything for me." Huiju says, "You don't know what I did to your wife yesterday. I kidnapped her in her own car and you said to kill her. I pulled her hair, strangled her with a wire, and even slashed her throat. I was about to kill her, and the poor thing couldn't even beg for her life because she can't speak. She was lucky the car crashed and she escaped." Hearing this, Saeon becomes furious and punches the wall, saying, "Now I won't let you go. I've never been so interested in anyone. As much as I am in you, I won't have you arrested by the police. I'll catch you myself." Huiju panics and ends the call because the 10-minute mark was almost up. She is now afraid that Saeon might catch her because she ended the call exactly at 10 minutes. In the next scene, Saeon takes Huiju to a room and gets close to her, asking her to show him her phone. She shows him her normal phone. He then asks, "Did you have a car accident yesterday?" She says yes. He asks for the time of the accident, and she types the same time when the kidnapper had called her. He moves her hair aside and sees the cut and strangulation marks. This angers him greatly, and he asks Huiju, "Who was it? What did he look like?" She types, "His face was covered." He says, "All this happened and you didn't tell me? From now on, you won't go anywhere without a bodyguard." Huiju doesn't react. He then calls his assistant and asks, "Did you trace the location?" The assistant replies, "No. The kidnapper's IP address keeps changing. It might be a gang." Saeon sends him the entire recording of his conversation with Huiju and says, Try to remove the voice modulation. The kidnapper knows a lot about me, things only my family knows. In the next scene, Hui-ju is looking at the phone. She thinks the kidnapper will surely try to find the phone because it has been with her for 2 days, so she needs to act quickly. Just then, Sa-eon enters her room without warning. Seeing him, Hui-ju hides the phone in her purse. Sa-eon asks for her car keys and starts taking them from her purse. Hui-ju quickly takes them out herself. Next, he goes to check her car and looks at the dash cam. Hui-ju also arrives and he tells her the dash cam recording has been deleted. Hearing this, she relaxes. She remembers getting out of the car and running away, but when she returned, the kidnapper had fled. Just then, a bike passes close to Hui-ju, and Sa-eon quickly pulls her close, telling her to quit her job. But Hui-ju refuses, saying, "I can't quit my job and I can't move around with security." She then leaves. In the next scene, Hui-ju is in the bathroom. She feels like someone is watching her, and later we find out that Sa-eon has hired a female bodyguard for Hui-ju. Meanwhile, Hui-ju sees a shadow outside the washroom. Later, we learn it's her high school friend, Sang-yu. Meanwhile, Sa-eon's assistant tells him, "I've gathered all the information, but there was no one at the event yesterday who could have kidnapped your wife. I think we should involve the police." Sa-eon replies, "Have you ever seen my wife? No one in this entire country knows who my wife is, and I can't involve the police during the election and ruin Dad's campaign." The assistant apologizes. On the other hand, the female bodyguard cannot find Hui-ju and informs Sa-eon via message. He tells her to keep searching. A while later, she messages, "I've found Hui-ju and she's with a guy." Sa-eon tells her, "Take a picture and send it to me." Meanwhile, Hui-ju is sitting with Sang-yu, who asks her, "Where did you disappear to? I searched for you a lot, and one day I saw you on a news channel as an interpreter. Both talk a lot and exchange numbers with each other." Hui-ju's bodyguard, Sa-eon, sends pictures of Hui-ju and Sang-yu to Sa-eon, in which they are both laughing. Seeing this, Sa-eon becomes jealous and keeps looking at the picture repeatedly, unable to focus on any work. On the other hand, Hui-ju's mom comes to Hui-ju with some nighties and scolds her, saying, "You have to take your relationship forward. You have to make Sa-eon happy, or else I will get your dad discharged from the hospital and his treatment won't continue." This reveals that Hui-ju's mom had blackmailed her into marriage because Hui-ju's mom had left her dad because he was mentally unstable and had been in a nursing home for many years. After that, she married Hong. In the next scene, Hui-ju takes a shower and wears the dress her mom brought. Then she thinks she was stuck with Sa-eon until now because, according to the contract, she couldn't get a divorce. But now, through the kidnapper's phone, she got a chance. So she takes a picture of her thighs and sends it to Sa-eon. He asks her, "What is this?" She says, "What kind of husband are you? Don't you even know about your wife's body? These are your wife's thighs, and now I can use this photo however I want." Sa-eon says, "Do you think I'll be scared seeing this fake photo?" She replies, "Okay, fine. Go and check if these are your wife's thighs, and don't you know there's a mole on her thighs?" Then she quickly hangs up and thinks, "What did I just say?" Meanwhile, Sa-eon tells his assistant to trace the location, saying, "This time the call lasted more than 10 minutes. Then Sa-eon remembers the kidnapper's mention of the mole, and this time, he doesn't want to make any mistakes. He goes home and removes the blanket from Hui-ju. Hui-ju had tightly held the blanket, causing him to fall on top of her, and their eyes meet. Then he tells Hui-ju, "Apply for the interpreter job in my company. Anyway, this is what you wanted. Now prove your capability and earn that position." Hui-ju is very surprised and thinks, "Did he come just to say this?" After leaving the room, Sa-eon thinks about the night of their wedding 4 years ago. Hui-ju had fallen asleep on the dinner table while waiting for him, and he was looking at her lovingly. Then she calls him to dance, even though she was very nervous. Seeing all this, Sa-eon tells her, "You don't need to be your mom's puppet, nor do you need to develop feelings for me, and never interfere in my matters." Saying this, he leaves. In the next scene, Hui-ju can't sleep because Sa-eon had fallen on her, and because of that, her heartbeat had become very fast. The next morning, when Hui-ju wakes up, Sa-eon asks her about breakfast. Hui-ju starts making breakfast, but he starts making it himself and asks her, "That day, you weren't meeting the security." Hui-ju tells him, "I met a college friend." He asks, "Were you too close? I mean, is he trustworthy?" She says yes. After that, Sa-eon prepares breakfast for her and leaves, and she is shocked, thinking, "Did he really make food for me?" Next, outside Yuri's office, some fans of a celebrity arrive, and someone pushes her, causing her to almost fall. Sang-yu arrives and catches her. Yuri keeps looking at him. Sang-yu is the second male lead of this story, and is a doctor and YouTuber by profession. Both sit and talk, and they find out they will be working together on a program. In the next scene, Sa-eon listens to a recording after removing voice modulation, but the result isn't very clear. Then his assistant shows him footage where the kidnapper had comfortably sat in his car. Now he doesn't know that the kidnapper had hacked Huiju's car. Seon's assistant tells him, it seems like he was deliberately allowed to enter the car. After that, Seon also becomes thoughtful. In the next scene, Seon tells his friend about the photo incident using someone else's example. His friend says, a kidnapper can threaten someone with their wife's private photo and demand a divorce only under one condition, if he is having an affair with the wife. Hearing this, Seon remembers his assistant's words, who had said, it seems like the kidnapper was deliberately allowed to enter the car. In the next scene, Huiju calls Seon from the kidnapper's number. He picks up and cuts the call. She calls again and he says, it seems you're too excited to talk to me. I'm busy right now. Call me after 5 minutes. Then she calls exactly after 5 minutes and she hears a blast sound. She gets very scared and her phone becomes unreachable. She goes home, but Seon isn't there and she falls asleep waiting for him. In the morning, she sees on the news that there was a blast in Seon's office and the voice note sent by the real kidnapper to Seon is played, I will kill him. Hearing this, Huiju gets scared because the kidnapper's phone was with her. After that, Seon arrives, who is in a very bad condition, and his clothes are stained with blood. He comes close to Huiju and says, cooperate with me, and starts lifting her dress because he wants to see if the thigh picture was really Huiju's or not. Then we are shown a flashback where Seon had deliberately married Huiju because he didn't want her to marry a bad person. In the next scene, we are shown the scene before the blast in Seon's office when Huiju was calling Seon pretending to be the kidnapper. Then a delivery man leaves a pizza outside, and as soon as Seon's assistant opens the box, there is a blast. When Seon opens his eyes, he is in the hospital. After that, he sees a message from security. Huiju is still at home. He realizes that the attack was carried out by the kidnapper. Now, he takes Huiju to the bedroom and starts lifting her dress. She pushes him back and types, what are you doing? He says, you know the kidnapper because he knows about your body parts. She says, what are you talking about? First, he kidnapped me. Now he hurt you. I don't understand anything. Then he apologizes to Huiju, fixes her clothes, and leaves. In the next scene, Seon is talking to his assistant. Now we will catch that kidnapper. Meanwhile, Huiju is also trying to listen to their conversation. When he comes out, she starts picking up glass pieces. Seon asks her to bring his phone, so she goes inside, deletes all the pictures from the kidnapper's phone, switches it off, and brings her phone to Seon. He says, this could also be hacked, so I'll get it protected and return it to you. In the next scene, we see the kidnapper, who is brutally cutting fish, and then his partner messages him asking, did you carry out the blast in the office? He says, yes, I did. Wasn't it fun? Then his partner sends him a location and says, there's a job for you. Meanwhile, Seon is looking at Sang-Yu's chat on Huiju's phone. Then he sees a photo of the two of them with orphanage children. Sang-Yu messages Huiju, inviting her to dinner tonight and sending the restaurant's location. So Seon also invites Yuri to dinner at the same place the next day. The next day, when he goes to the restaurant, Huiju is shocked to see him, and Yuri asks Seon, how do you know Huiju? He says, she worked with me as an interpreter, and starts asking Sang-Yu many questions. Sang-Yu is taking great care of Huiju, which makes Seon very jealous. Huiju, embarrassed by Seon's actions, goes to the washroom. Then Seon gets a call from his assistant, who tells him, the blast was carried out by the kidnapper because the police have caught the suspect, and he didn't carry out the blast. Then Huiju arrives and types on her phone, did you take my phone to protect it from being hacked or to keep an eye on me? Seon asks her, are you hiding something from me? Huiju says, are you suspecting me and Sang-Yu? I've known him since childhood. He's not like that. Seon becomes even more jealous and says, do you know anything about me? I thought I knew everything about you, but I was wrong. Saying this, he leaves, and Huiju also leaves the restaurant. Seon gives Sang-Yu's card to his assistant and asks him to find out everything about him. On the other hand, when Huiju gets into her car to go home from the office, the car's radio starts playing on its own, and a song request comes from the kidnapper's phone. The song's name was Call Me Now. Seeing this, Huiju gets very scared and goes home to check her phone thinking, this means the kidnapper knows the phone is with me. Then she hears Seon's voice, so she hides the phone and comes out. Seon asks her, where are you going? She says, I'm going to get ice cream and beer. Seon says, don't bother, I'll get it. After that, he leaves and she calls him again, pretending to be the kidnapper and says, what have you decided? I even carried out a blast in your office to show you a trailer. Now you should understand. Seon says, I will never give you what you want, no matter what you do, and what do you gain from me divorcing my wife? What is your relationship with her? She says, anyway, you don't love her, so it would be better for you to leave her. Seon says, you're talking as if someone has explained these things to you. Hearing this, Huiju can't say anything, so he cuts the call saying, I will never leave my wife. Huiju is also surprised, wondering what he wants to do. Then Seon brings her ice cream and beer and says, I won't give you a divorce. Hearing this, Huiju is shocked and he comes close to her and says, my name shouldn't come up in any scandal, and wipes the foam from her lips. He tells her to be ready for the interview tomorrow, and she says, no one will be better than me tomorrow because I can tell what someone is going to say just by looking at their face. He comes closer and says, okay, then tell me what I'm thinking. Then he says, this kidnapper is very clever. He knows things about our house that no one else knows, but I want to prove him wrong. He was saying that we live like strangers in the same house. I didn't like that. Saying this, he goes to Huiju's room and Huiju is shocked watching him. He lies down on her bed and says, come, let's sleep. She still stands there. So he says, I won't bite, come. Are you scared I'll do something to you? Don't worry, I won't do anything. If I wanted to, I would have done it long ago. Or is it that you can't control yourself seeing me on the bed? If that's the case, don't come. Hearing this, Huiju snatches her pillow, turns her face away, and lies down. He tells her to turn her face towards him. When she does, Seon says, I think our house isn't safe from that kidnapper, so we need to be very careful now. Forget the tension and sleep. She thinks to herself, should I forget what you said that day? After that, he falls asleep, and Huiju keeps looking at him. Then she also falls asleep, and Seon gets up and leaves. Now, through a dream of Huiju, we learn the reason for her not speaking, and we see that Huiju had two siblings, who were Mr. Hong's children, and the three of them were going out when their car met with an accident, and Huiju's brother died on the spot, while her sister couldn't hear after the accident. Only Huiju was unharmed, so her mom scolds her badly, saying, how come nothing happened to you? And forcefully closes her mouth, not letting her cry, and says, from now on, you won't speak. If you go to Hong completely fine, he won't keep you with him out of pity. And from then on, Huiju becomes completely silent, and then her eyes open. In the next scene, we see the kidnapper taking Huiju's dad far away from the nursing home, and his face is revealed. His eyes were of different colors. After that, he video calls Huiju and says, my phone is with you, and our intention is to scare Seon, so you keep threatening him, and if you back off, it won't be good. Then he threatens her with her dad's teeth and cuts the call. Huiju gets very scared and immediately goes to the hospital where her dad is still unconscious, and the nurse tells her, he suddenly disappeared and was found very far away. Those teeth weren't your dad's. The police take Huiju with them to file a report where something happens to their car's radio. Seeing this, Huiju gets very scared, stops the car, vomits, and starts crying. Then Seon arrives and tells the police to leave. They ask him about his relationship with Huiju, and he says, she is my wife. Hearing this, Huiju is shocked because she had never told anyone this before. Seon tells the police to keep it a secret and says, I will come to file the report myself, but for now, I'm taking Huiju with me. After seating her in the car, he tells Huiju, don't worry, we'll shift your dad to another nursing home. Huiju is crying loudly for her dad, so Seon tries to lighten the mood by saying, oh, so you can make sounds like this. She immediately becomes silent. He says, I won't stop you from crying. You can cry as much as you want. On the other hand, Yu-ri comes to her favorite restaurant. Sang-yu also arrives, and they join each other, talking about their crushes. Then Yu-ri guesses Sang-yu's crush is Huiju because she saw how Sang-yu was taking care of Huiju at the restaurant. While Sang-yu starts telling her about Seon, and he says, your crush is on Seon, right? She says, yes, but he's married. He asks, well, who did he marry? She replies, he belongs to a very powerful political family, so obviously he must have married a girl from a similar family. Next, in the hotel room, Seon tells Huiju, whoever is after us, your dad is also in danger now. If you're hiding something from me, tell me, but I won't force you. Then he tells Huiju to eat and freshen up because she has dinner downstairs with his mom and dad. Seon sits with his mom and dad, and his dad asks him to join him politically. When Seon refuses, his dad gets upset. Just then, Huiju arrives, and they start insulting her. Seeing this, Seon gets very angry and tells Huiju to leave. As they are about to leave, his dad throws a wine glass at Huiju, but Seon hugs her and covers her. Then his dad threatens him, if you go away from me, you'll be ruined. Seon replies, I've already distanced myself from you. Next, in the elevator, Sa-eon holds Huiju's hand, and Huiju tries to free herself, but he doesn't let go. He says, I know you want a divorce from me because you had to marry me instead of your sister, and you couldn't even defend yourself. My parents are very selfish, so don't pay attention to their words. Huiju was very scared of the kidnapper's phone and was about to throw it away in the trash. Just then, Sa-eon says, give it to me, I'll throw it. But she doesn't give it to him and takes it back to her room. Then Sa-eon wishes Huiju all the best for her interview. She types on her phone, if I get selected and if our families find out that we're working together, what will happen? He replies, how long will you remain an obedient child? You can make your own decisions now, and this is a great opportunity for you. You should think about yourself now. She types, okay, then you also think about how you'll face everyone if I get selected. He smiles at this. Next, Se-eon deliberately doesn't go to Huiju's interview and sits outside, watching her on camera. Huiju is given one of Sa-eon's speeches, which she interprets perfectly. Seeing this, Se-eon is also shocked, but then takes some notes and goes in to say, did you memorize this speech? Because your hand movements happen even before I speak. She replies, I practice a lot on your speeches. Then she is shown all of Se-eon's speeches, and she interprets them all perfectly. Everyone is impressed by this. Se-eon asks her, have you memorized all my speeches? She says, no, I've watched all your speeches and practiced a lot on them. Then he says, come on, I'll tell you a random story, and you interpret it right now. He says, there's a married couple who don't have any conversations or share their feelings with each other. How will they improve their relationship and move forward in life? In reality, he is talking about his and her story. She interprets it very well, and everyone is impressed by her talent. Se-eon walks out smiling and thinks, Huiju, what are you? Se-eon had admitted Huiju's dad to a very good hospital, and when she goes there, she finds out that he had also come to meet them. After this, she thinks, what kind of person is he? Sometimes very kind, sometimes very harsh. I don't understand him. Huiju gets selected in Sa-eon's company, and when his assistant tells him this, he doesn't react at all but is very happy and recalls a childhood scene. When Huiju asks her mom for seafood and her mom doesn't give it to her, Sa-eon quietly takes her hand and gives her his plate. She starts eating quickly out of fear of her mom. Then Sa-eon asks her name, and she writes it on his hand with her finger. In the present, he looks at Huiju's picture and says, when did you grow up so much? Just then, Huiju sends him a thank you message for what he did for her dad. The next day, Huiju and Sa-eon go to a party where Huiju's mom takes her aside and says, are you crazy? How dare you tell Sa-eon about your dad? Huiju types on her phone, won't you ask why dad was shifted from there? Her mom says, no, I don't care. In fact, it's good. Now I won't have to pay for the hospital. Huiju gets very upset. Her mom says, what are you wearing? And takes off her coat. Huiju goes outside and starts drinking, eventually ending up on the terrace. Next, on the terrace, Huiju is very upset and calls Se-eon using the kidnapper's phone. He picks up. She says, you were forced to marry Huiju, right? Because your fiancé ran away, and Huiju is a worthless girl. She has no skills, isn't famous, and is just like a supplementary page. You got her for free. Huiju is also a gold digger who only wanted money and this luxurious life. That's why she doesn't want to leave all this. Se-eon replies, that's not true at all. Huiju is different and not worthless. People misunderstand her, and she never bowed to money. She just loves her mom, which is why she obeys her, whether it's right or wrong. While saying this, he starts looking for Huiju everywhere but can't find her. Then Se-eon says, there was a time when I was surrounded by only bad people. Only Huiju gave me positive vibes. She's not a supplementary page, but unique and very hardworking. So don't say anything about my wife. Hearing this, Huiju starts crying and says, then why did you treat her like that? Why did you ignore her? Why did you say in front of everyone that you two aren't a couple? Just then, Huiju hears the elevator and sees Sa-eon there, watching her talk on the phone. A flashback shows that when Sa-eon went to the police station to file a report, the police first took a photo with him and then told him, your wife was panicking in the car and asked us to stop the car, so we stopped it quickly. Se-eon asks, did she ask to stop the car? They say, yes. Then Se-eon checks the car's dash cam and realizes that Huiju can speak. In the next scene, Sa-eon overhears Huiju and her mom talking. Her mom says, after the accident, she couldn't speak due to shock. Sa-eon says, how can someone remain in shock for 20 years from an accident that wasn't even her fault? Her mom says, she lost her brother and her sister became deaf. This shock is too much, and it should be. She can't be normal. Hearing this, Se-eon gets very angry and says, you should talk to Huiju respectfully. He then starts looking for Huiju. Just then, he gets a call from the kidnapper and starts searching for her. He sees Huiju's coat and picks it up. He goes upstairs and sees Huiju talking on the phone. Huiju, seeing Sa-eon, quickly hides the kidnapper's phone in her bag and starts to fall. Sa-eon catches her and saves her from getting hurt. He asks, "Were you talking to someone on the phone?" She doesn't answer. Then Sa-eon gets a call from his assistant. Taking advantage of this, Huiju tries to run away, but Sa-eon stops her and puts the coat on her. She then leaves. Sa-eon's assistant tells him, "This time, we've traced the kidnapper's location, and he's very close to you." Hearing this, Sa-eon gets worried for Huiju and goes inside to check on her. But when he sees Huiju perfectly fine at the party, he relaxes. Next, after the party, they both return home. Sa-eon notices the scar on her knee and says, "That dog was about to bite you, yet you didn't make a sound. How could a little girl control herself so much in such a situation? You're different from everyone, and I want to see how long you'll endure all this." Saying this, he leaves. Huiju starts thinking about that day, and a flashback shows that Huiju had written about wanting to be a broadcast news reporter. Her mom saw this, hit her, and said, "Remember one thing, you can't speak." Hearing this, Huiju cries and leaves the house. A dog barks at her and is about to bite her when Sa-eon arrives and saves her. He carries her home on his back because she was injured and couldn't walk. On the other hand, Sa-eon is lost in thought, wondering if he should ask Huiju about the truth of her speaking. She types on her phone, "Everyone has secrets. Tell me, is there anything you've hidden from me?" In the present, he decides not to talk to her about it and returns to his room. Huiju receives a confirmation message from the presidential office. Seeing this, she gets very emotional and thinks of messaging Sa-eon. By mistake, she sends a love emoji, and Sa-eon, seeing this, is both confused and happy. He then announces a party at the office to celebrate the new interpreter's arrival. Meanwhile, Huiju thinks of deleting the message, but Sa-eon has already seen it. She feels embarrassed, wondering what Sa-eon will think. Just then, Sa-eon replies, congratulating her. Huiju thanks him, saying, "This happened because of you." He replies, "No, it's your own talent." Sa-eon wants to give Huiju a gift, and on his assistant's advice, decides to buy her a dress. He asks her to meet him at a place. Meanwhile, Sang-yu and Yu-ri are investigating a criminal case and enter a house where Sang-yu had seen a strange child in his childhood. Sang-yu tells Yu-ri, "That child was very strange. We were playing when a cat came, and do you know what he said to me? He said, 'Let's cut this cat's limbs with a knife and then rip its stomach open.' Hearing this, I ran away. But after that, children started disappearing from the orphanage." Yu-ri asks, "But why did you suddenly remember this case after so many years?" He says, "I feel like all this started because of me, since I was the one who came here to play and told other boys about this place. I waited 20 years because I was growing my YouTube channel, but now, through your channel, I can reach people." Yu-ri then finds out that Huiju got the job and tells Sang-yu about it. In the next scene, Huiju goes to the store Sa-eon told her about, where he had picked out a suit for her. She tries it on and looks very cute. Her sister is also at the store, shopping on the other side. Sa-eon asks Huiju to try on another dress, but Huiju says, "Such dresses don't look good on me." They then leave the store and go to another shop, where Sa-eon asks her to try on a dress. Huiju goes to try it on. Sa-eon's assistant calls him and says, after removing the voice modulation, the voice turned out to be a girl's, meaning a girl was blackmailing Sa-eon. Hearing this, Sa-eon can't believe it and asks for another analysis. Meanwhile, Huiju comes out wearing the dress, and Sa-eon is left speechless. He says, "Underestimating yourself is a very bad habit, and I'll help you unlearn it." As they leave the shop, Huiju's sister Ine sees them together and feels upset seeing them happy. Huiju types on her phone, asking Sa-eon, "What will you eat?" Just then, she gets a message from Sang-yu, congratulating her and inviting her to celebrate at a restaurant, saying, "Yu-ri is also with me." Sa-eon keeps looking at her phone and says, "You'll go, but with me." At the restaurant, Sang-yu asks, "How are you two together?" Sa-eon says, "Huiju wanted to treat me, so how are you and Yu-ri together?" Sang-yu explains, "Because we're working together on a program." Sang-yu then congratulates Huiju and says, "Your dream was something else, right?" A flashback shows Huiju secretly submitting her application in the broadcasting room because she wanted to be a broadcast reporter. She plays music, listens to songs, and starts dancing. Sang-yu, who was sleeping there, wakes up and smiles seeing her dance. This is how they first met, and Sang-yu develops a crush on her. Yu-ri teases them, saying, "Wow, what a romantic scene between you two. Something must have happened." Hearing this, Sa-eon also says, "Yes, did you two flirt with each other?" Huiju feels very uncomfortable, and Yu-ri realizes her mistake. Huiju then says, "It's true that my dream was something else, but I'm happy being an interpreter now." She leaves upset. Seon goes outside to look for Hoi-ju and sees two school kids reminding him of a childhood memory. Seon was very good at studies, so he used to teach Hoi-ju's sister Ina. Ina had stopped speaking and didn't wear her hearing device, so Hoi-ju would write things down for her. Even Seon would scold her, but Hoi-ju would write positive things like, "Seon is very happy with your progress." In the present, Seon gets a call from the kidnapper. He asks, "Have you ever heard Hoi-ju's voice?" Hoi-ju is shocked and says, "She can't speak." Seon says, after the accident, Hong's daughter became disabled and she never let anyone show that she had speaking or hearing issues. Instead, she kept Hoi-ju with her. The fact that she was the one who communicated with everyone on his behalf only makes me understand one thing. Hoi-ju was intentionally disabled because she had to live in that house. So, how could she be better than Ina? Hearing this, Hoi-ju becomes extremely shocked. Then Hoi-ju says to her, "You said you would never leave Hoi-ju. So will you not leave her even after Ina comes?" Seon says, "No, I will never leave her." Just then, a car is about to hit him. Hoi-ju sees it from a distance and, shouting his name, runs to push him out of the way, saving him. Both fall, but they are not seriously injured. At that moment, Seon says, "Did you just call my name? Please say my name once more." Hoi-ju remains silent. He then says, "How long will you keep hiding all this inside you? Please speak. Talk to me. The world won't end just because you speak." When Hoi-ju returns home, she smiles while looking at the dress Seon gave her. The next morning, the president is asking all the new interns their names, and when he asks Hoi-ju, he realizes she cannot speak. Seon then tells him, "I am learning sign language so that I can communicate with Hoi-ju." In the next scene, Hoi-ju is teaching him sign language. At the next welcome party, Seon's assistant informs him, after analyzing the kidnapper's voice, it is confirmed that it is a girl's voice. On the other hand, Hoi-ju is thinking about the kidnapper's call, who had told her the car that was about to hit Seon, the kidnapper, was in it. The kidnapper tells Hoi-ju, "I want to ruin Seon," and then adds, "You will be caught very soon because Seon has almost figured out about you." Meanwhile, Seon sends his assistant Hoi-ju's dash cam voice and says, "Find out how similar the kidnapper's voice is to this one." He then drinks heavily due to the tension and falls asleep in his car. Hoi-ju comes, supports him, and takes him inside. They both fall. Seon's phone falls to the side, and a message from his assistant appears. Both voices are a 99.9% match. Hoi-ju is on top of Seon, and they end up kissing. In the next scene, Seon is asleep. When he wakes up, he sees Hoi-ju sleeping on his arm. Hoi-ju also wakes up. They both feel awkward. Seon doesn't remember anything from the previous night. He asks Hoi-ju, "Why are we sleeping here? Did something happen last night?" She types on her phone, "Should I honestly tell you everything?" He says, "Yes, tell me everything." As she is typing, Seon receives a call and leaves without reading her message. His assistant informs him, the caller's voice matches the dashcam voice exactly. Shocked, he thinks, why would Hoi-ju do this? He then thinks he had received many hints that Hoi-ju was the kidnapper, but he never paid attention. But then he thinks, there must be someone behind Hoi-ju's kidnapping, the office blast, and Hoi-ju's father's disappearance. At the office, his assistant tells him, the kidnapper and the one who orchestrated the blast, they are connected. Do you know who the girl caller is? Seon replies, yes, I know, but I can't tell you right now. Next, Hoi-ju comes to teach Seon sign language. He writes the words cheat, hate, and betrayal on a paper and says, tell me how to say these. Then he writes a sentence, I forgave you for your mistakes. Hoi-ju starts teaching him, but Seon is in a bad mood and says, that's enough for today, and leaves. Outside, some sign language papers Hoi-ju had made for him fall from his file. Seeing this, he becomes thoughtful. In the next scene, Seon's mother is drinking and reminiscing. A flashback shows her returning home to find all the fish in the tank with their bellies cut open. Terrified, she locks a small child in a room and starts crying. Ina returns and meets Hoi-ju. Hoi-ju is shocked and asks, can you speak now? Ina replies, yes, my surgery was successful, and now I can speak and hear like normal people, and now you can speak too. Hearing this, Hoi-ju is even more shocked and asks, did you know about this? Ina says, yes, and I also knew it was because of me. Hoi-ju gets angry and starts to leave, but Ina says, I'm sorry, I know a lot of bad things happened to you, but I didn't want to suffer alone, so I pretended not to know. Now you can speak. Hoi-ju says, when I speak and when I don't, that's not for you to decide. I will decide for myself, and leaves. Ina messages her, I didn't run away from the wedding. Seon asked me to step back because he wanted to marry you. Hearing this, Hoi-ju angrily goes home, where Seon is checking her room. Hoi-ju asks, what are you doing? He says, I can't find my phone. I was just looking for it. Huiju calls his number and his phone rings outside. Se-eon then reaches into a box and finds a bikini. Huiju tries to snatch it from him and falls on him. Both their heartbeats race. Se-eon suddenly remembers that they had kissed that night and quickly leaves. Se-eon's heartbeat doesn't calm down. He receives a call from the number 406 and teases Huiju, saying, "Oh, 406, I was just thinking about you. We haven't talked today." She asks, "Why?" He says, "I've been talking to you for so long, but I don't know anything about you. Tell me something about yourself." She says, "Okay, let's take turns being honest with each other." First, Huiju asks, "You said you made a deal with Ina the day before the wedding. Was it about Huiju?" He says, "Yes." They continue asking each other heartfelt questions. Then Se-eon asks, "Did you threaten Huiju?" Because he thought the kidnapper might be blackmailing her. Huiju replies, "No," and "yes." Then she asks, "Did you marry Huiju just to connect with the Hong family and keep her as a hostess?" He says, "No, I used to have terrible nightmares, and whenever I got scared, I would go to Huiju's house and watch her practice sign language. It gave me peace, but Huiju had no one to take care of her, so I married her to protect her." He adds, "I never thought she would feel like she was in jail with me and want a divorce." He then asks, "Does she still want a divorce?" Huiju remains silent, so he says, 406, why are you quiet? You know everything about Huiju, don't you?" She says, she doesn't want to hope anymore. For the past 3 years, she thought everything would get better, but it didn't. Now she wants you to let her go so she won't get hurt anymore. He says, "I know Huiju needs love, security, sincerity, understanding, and care. I can give her all of that." Hearing this, Huiju becomes emotional and accidentally says, "First, you said you would kill me, and that my death wouldn't matter to you. What's changed now?" They both imagine sitting face to face. Huiju then says, "You treated Huiju like a hostage so you wouldn't fall in love with her." Se-eon replies, "I will try once more to fix our relationship. If it works, you will never call me again." Huiju says, "It all depends on your efforts," and hangs up. The next morning, everyone from the presidential office is going on a picnic. When they stop for lunch, Se-eon has specially arranged for all the dishes to be heart-shaped. On the bus, everyone sits down, and a new interpreter sits next to Huiju, offering her coffee. Se-eon pretends to have car sickness and sends him to the back, throwing away the coffee he gave Huiju. He then gives her juice and says, "Drinking coffee on an empty stomach isn't good." Huiju just stares at him. Meanwhile, Sang-yu and Yu-ri buy a lot of things for the orphanage children and have fun with them. The children think Yu-ri is Sang-yu's girlfriend. While looking through a photo album, Yu-ri finds a funny picture of Sang-yu, which he tries to hide from her. Sang-yu then finds a group photo from his childhood, showing children who had gone missing from the orphanage. He takes the photo to the principal, but she is not the old principal and doesn't know much. Sang-yu names his 3 friends and says, "They went missing." The principal says, "No, one of the twin brothers also went missing, making a total of 4 children." On the bus, Huiju falls asleep on Se-eon's shoulder. He looks around and uses his hand to shield her face from the sun. They arrive at their destination and start playing games. The new guy tries to team up with Huiju, but Se-eon sends him away and becomes her partner. The first game is jumping over a spinning rope. Se-eon warms up and tells Huiju, "I'll go first, then you." But as soon as he tries, he fails and comes back. He says, "This time I'll do it right." But Huiju says, "This time I'll go first." Huiju jumps perfectly, and Se-eon joins her. They jump together and are very happy. Se-eon smiles openly for the first time and enjoys life. Meanwhile, Sang-yu and Yu-ri try to find the missing twin brother, but the case is 20 years old, so it's difficult. Sang-yu tells Yu-ri, "If one brother went missing, the other is alive. If we find him, it will be easier." The next game is a 3-legged race. The partners tie one leg together and jump while supporting each other. They win the game and are so excited that Se-eon lifts Huiju and spins her around in front of everyone. Everyone watches and Se-eon says, "Oh, sorry, I got too excited because of these games." Se-eon and Huiju have grown very close. They take a picture together, standing far apart at first, but their colleague asks them to come closer and make a heart shape, so they take a great picture. The next game is mountain tracking. Everyone gets tired and falls behind, but Se-eon and Huiju reach the mountaintop first. It's very cold, so Se-eon gives Huiju his jacket. When everyone arrives, they take pictures at the top. Se-eon's fans show up, and he gets busy with them. Huiju is standing at the edge of the cliff. A teammate screams, seeing someone fall. Se-eon looks around and realizes Huiju is missing. She must have fallen. Se-eon calls the rescue team and helicopters. Morning turns to evening, but there's no sign of Huiju. Se-eon sets out to find her himself. Meanwhile, Huiju regains consciousness, but is in severe pain from her injuries. Her phone is broken, but she finds the kidnapper's phone, which is still working. She has no choice but to call Se-eon, as that phone can only call him. She calls Se-eon, who says, "Huiju, Huiju is shocked that he knows. Seon says, 406, I know Huiju is with you. Please tell me where she is. Huiju says, you said to call when she's about to die. She's about to die. Come and get her. He says, there's a color flare in Huiju's bag. Tell her to release it into the sky. I'll see it and come. Huiju doesn't respond because her condition is worsening. She musters the strength to reach the bag and releases the flare. Seon sees it and says, 406, tell Huiju not to be afraid. I've seen the flare. I'm coming to save her, and runs toward it. The scene then shifts to that night when Seon was drunk. Huiju asked him about his true feelings, and he said, Huiju, I like you. Hearing this, Huiju smiles and falls asleep on his chest. In the present, Huiju's eyes are closing as she remembers the day she was going to the amusement park with her siblings. They had an accident, and her sister became deaf while her brother died. Her mother forced her not to speak. She did it to gain her mother's love and attention, but she still longed for it. Seon finds Huiju and carries her on his back. While searching for her, he also got injured. Huiju thinks, back then, it was Seon who cared for me, and now it's still him. She wonders, Seon is very special to me. Why can't I tell him anything? Next, Huiju wakes up in a hospital. Seeing her conscious, Seon becomes emotional. Huiju grabs his hand and says, don't go. Stay here with me. Seon sits by her side. Huiju thinks, I spoke in front of Seon, but he didn't react. Did he already know I could speak? Does he know I'm 406? He was talking as if he was speaking directly to me. But if that's the case, why didn't he say anything? Maybe because I'm still sick. He'll scold me when I get home. She imagines going home and Seon giving her a divorce. Then she remembers the kidnapper's phone. On the other hand, Seon's assistant gives him the phone and says, this was found at the location where Huiju was. I don't understand why Huiju was pushed. After this, Seon says, I was the target, but I think the interpreter Huiju accidentally came in front. Then he says, don't report this to the police yet. I will file the report myself. Seon puts the phone back in Huiju's bag. Just then, Huiju enters the room and he says to her, what happened? Have you gone silent again? Hearing this, she is shocked. He lifts her and lays her on the bed saying, I've known for a long time that you can speak, and I know a lot more about you. 406 helped me a lot in finding you. First, she did this to you, and then she also helped me find you. Now I don't know whether to forgive her or file a complaint against her with the police. Huiju starts to tell him everything truthfully. He stops her and says, I have a lot to ask you, but for now just rest. He gives her a new mobile and leaves. Huiju takes out the phone from her bag and thinks, could Seon have not seen this? And says to herself, through this phone, I wanted to distance myself from you, but because of this phone, we have grown closer. Meanwhile, Seon's father describes the trip accident in a conference as a political attack and says, this was done against my son. On the other hand, Ine comes to meet Huiju's mother, who says to her, why have you come now to take Huiju's place? Ine replies, I have no interest in taking anyone's place. I've only come to help Huiju. How could you do this to Huiju? You know the truth about Seon, don't you? Hearing this, Huiju's mother is shocked. Ine says, you were the one who sent me those papers so I wouldn't marry Seon, right? But Huiju's mother knew nothing about this. Now, Seon's office is flooded with calls from reporters. Seeing this, Seon gets very angry and goes to his father saying, why did you do this? End this now, or else wait for my response tomorrow. His father asks, who fell from the mountain? He replies, Huiju. Hearing this, his father becomes furious and says, how dare you hire her? Have you forgotten your place? You've gotten everything beyond your status. What were you, and what are you now? Seon says, this was never my choice. I never asked to be given my son's place. Then we see a flashback where Seon's mother is giving him his son's belongings and clothes, telling him, these are the things my son liked. Next, Sang-yu saves Yu-ri from hitting the door again, and they have successfully found out that the mansion where Sang-yu used to play was registered under someone named Jack Sok. This is why Yu-ri is searching for him, and Sang-yu is trying to find the surviving twin brother through his orphanage friends. Seon brings fruits and food for Huiju, along with his clothes. She asks, did you sleep here? He replies, yes, of course. A family member has to stay, right? Then he calls her to take a shower in the bathroom. She thinks, why is he calling me? Will he shower with me? But Seon simply washes and dries her hair with ease. Huiju asks him, why have you suddenly started caring for me so much? Seon says, most husbands care for their wives, but I regret not doing anything for you for 3 years. Then Huiju lies down on the bed, and Seon changes his clothes and comes to sit beside her. Huiju's heartbeat quickens, but Seon just lowers her bed and goes back to sleep on the sofa. Later, Huiju looks for Seon, but he isn't there. She calls him, but Saeon messages her, "Go to sleep. I'm waiting for someone's call." Huiju calls Saeon from the kidnapper's phone, and he answers saying, "406, I was waiting for your call." She asks for the reason, and he says, "Because you helped me find Huiju. If it weren't for you, I would never have found Huiju." She says, "Aren't you going to ask me how I got her location?" He replies, "What does it matter? I know a lot about you, that you're a girl in your 20s. Hearing this, Huiju falls silent. Then Saeon starts flirting with her to tease her, saying, "I think you must be very beautiful. Are you beautiful? I really enjoy talking to you. Talking to you makes me forget all my tensions." Hearing this, Huiju becomes furious and says, "Aren't you ashamed? Your wife is in the hospital and here you are flirting with me. You don't care about her." But he continues to tease her and says, "I want to imagine you." Huiju says, "Your wife is in the hospital and you want to imagine me." Then he says, 406, I know you had no hand in these attacks. I want you to help me catch the kidnappers. Tell me the details you know." She tells him his eyes are different colors, and he stutters when he speaks. He gets angry very quickly, and he has a partner. The next day, Saeon gives a statement to the media and reveals a sketch of the kidnapper, saying, "I've been receiving threats from this man for a long time." After this, the news trends, and Saeon ensures Huiju's name is not mentioned anywhere. Seeing the news about himself on TV and media, the kidnapper becomes extremely angry and messages his partner, "You pushed Huiju, and now my face has been revealed. Your enmity is with Saeon, so why did you push Huiju?" His partner replies, "Because I want Saeon to feel the pain of losing someone dear, and Huiju is his weakness." The kidnapper calls Huiju, but she doesn't answer. Then he messages her, "You think I pushed you, but I didn't. And did you give Saeon all the details about me? Anyway, since you're no longer with us, I'm coming to take my phone back." Hearing this, she locks the room and sits down in fear. Just then, someone tries to open the door from outside. Hearing Saeon's voice, she opens the door and hugs him upon seeing him. Saeon calms her down, makes her sit on the bed and asks, "What happened?" She says, "Everyone is talking about you. Aren't you scared?" Saeon turns off the lights, tucks her in, and is about to leave when Huiju stops him. He lies down with her and tells her to sleep. After a while, Huiju takes the kidnapper's phone and goes to the terrace to call Saeon, apologizing. Then she says, "I want to give you this phone so it can help you. I'm coming to you now." After this, she goes to the room, but no one is there. She calls Saeon again, and he gives her an address to come to, which is the amusement park where Huiju used to go as a child. She goes there and calls him, and he tells her to eat ice cream. Doing all this reminds her of her childhood days. Then she asks Saeon, "Why are you listening to this?" He says, "I just want you to relax a little." She says, "Don't get so excited to meet me. When you see me, you'll be very hurt." After this, Saeon stands behind her and says, "I told you, don't underestimate yourself." Huiju is shocked and says, "You knew?" He says, "Yes." She says, "Yet you didn't say anything and took care of me." He says, "What else could I do? Tell me, how can I hate you? And how can I not love you?" Hearing this, Huiju becomes emotional and hugs him. Saeon then kisses her. Saeon called Huiju to the park because he had seen a photo of her at the park, looking very happy. He wanted to remind her of that feeling again. After returning home, he cooks for Huiju, which she really likes. He says, "From now on, we'll always eat together, just like a good couple. So this house doesn't feel like a jail." Huiju says, "I never said that. You did. Maybe you felt guilty about it." He says, "No, there was no guilt." Huiju says, "Tell me, have we ever done anything like a normal couple? We never ate together, never made eye contact, never slept together." Hearing this, Saeon smiles and says, "If you didn't like sleeping in your room, you could have told me." Huiju says, "That's not what I meant." Saeon says, "You made this house a home after marriage. You know, when I came back from the office and saw the lights on, it felt good to know someone was home. And sometimes you would fall asleep watching TV and seeing you gave me peace. You are my peace, Huiju." She says, "You should have told me all this earlier. At least our 3 years wouldn't have been wasted." He says, "I drew a line between us because you didn't marry me willingly. I was afraid I might fall in love with you, but it happened anyway." Huiju shows him the kidnapper's messages and he says, he will be caught very soon through this phone. Huiju hugs him from behind and says, "I still can't believe you forgave me." He hugs her back and thinks to himself, "Will you forgive me after knowing my truth?" Meanwhile, the kidnapper's partner messages him, "Did you get your phone back from Huiju?" He replies, "No, I went, but the security was very tight and Saeon also showed up, so I came back." Saeon's parents are watching the news about the kidnapper. Hearing about his appearance, especially his eye color, they are slightly shocked. Huiju has a terrible dream about Saeon. After this, she cries and tries to call him, but he doesn't answer. She goes to his room, where he is sleeping, and watches him. When Sa-eon wakes up, he pulls her down to lie with him, hugs her, and says, "After 3 years, I've taken my first holiday today." He asks her, "What do you want to do today?" She tells him, "I often imagined us as a cute couple going for a morning walk and spending the whole day together." Just as they are talking, Sa-eon gets a call from the office about an emergency. Outside Sa-eon's father's office, someone had sent large bouquets with the message, "I know all the truth about your son, and I will reveal it to everyone." This becomes trending news again. Sa-eon's office staff had called him for a surprise because he had been very troubled for a long time. Seeing this, he gets very angry because he had thought of spending time with Huiju for the first time, which was ruined. Next, Sa-eon's assistant informs him of the kidnapper's location, which has finally been traced. Sa-eon decides to go there alone and tells him, "Don't inform the police about this yet." Meanwhile, the kidnapper messages Huiju saying, "Didn't I tell you don't know everything about Sa-eon?" and sends her a video with a newsline about some missing children from the orphanage. Meanwhile, Sa-eon's reporter friend tells him about the bouquets. The kidnapper sent them outside your father's office with the message, "I know what Sa-eon has done." Sa-eon says, "I'm going to find out everything." Meanwhile, Huiju and Sa-eon's father have a meeting, and his father asks, "Did you send those bouquets outside my office? Because no one else knows about Sa-eon except you." He says, "No, I didn't send them." Then he says, "Are you sure your father took care of him? Because if he comes in front of me, I'll kill him with my own hands." We will find out later who they are talking about. Meanwhile, Huiju asks Sang-yu about the missing children from the orphanage, and he starts telling her everything. Meanwhile, Sa-eon arrives at the mansion where Sang-yu and his friends used to play, searching for the kidnapper. Just then, he hears a video playing, and after it ends, the screen reads, "Sa-eon, you are the one who killed those children. You are their murderer." Next, Sang-yu and Huiju come to investigate the mansion. Sang-yu shows Huiju the mansion's gate from outside and tells her everything, saying, "We'll come back in the morning. It's too dark now." Just then, Sa-eon sees them and repeatedly calls Huiju. Sang-yu tells Huiju, "Answer the call and talk." She says in sign language, "How can I talk?" He says, "It seems someone else besides me knows you can speak." She is completely shocked. Just then, Sa-eon overtakes their car, pulls Huiju out, and forces her into his car. Sang-yu asks him, "What right do you have over Huiju?" Sa-eon says, "Why are you hanging around her? Stay away from her, because ever since you entered our lives, these kidnappings and other attacks started happening." Sa-eon thinks Sang-yu is the kidnapper's partner. Then he leaves. Sa-eon asks Huiju, "What were you doing with Sang-yu?" She shows him the kidnapper's messages, and he says, "Oh, so you went to ask him about me?" She says, "No, I went to ask about the orphanage children." He says, "Why, were you scared of me?" She says, "Yes, but not of you, of losing you. When I was talking to you as 406, I was always afraid you'd find out everything. I wanted to run away from you, and I'm afraid you might distance yourself from me if your secret is revealed. And I've been having dreams since morning that you left me. Look, no matter how shocking your secret is, I'll handle it, but please don't leave me." Sa-eon says, "It's not that easy." He hugs her and says, "Always remember one thing. Even if my identity completely changes, I will always be your Sa-eon, the one who loves you the most." Then they hug each other. In the next scene, Ina meets her dad and tells him, "One day before the wedding, someone sent me this DNA report. It was Sa-eon's. It clearly stated that Sa-eon is not Mr. Beck's son." Hearing this, he is not shocked at all, so Ina says, "This means you already knew everything and you were the one who sent me these papers." Huiju's mom also overhears this and is shocked. We find out that this is why Mr. Hong let Ina leave the wedding. Then we are shown a flashback. In it, Mr. Hong tells Sa-eon's mom and dad, Sa-eon will marry Huiju. They are not agreeing, so Mr. Hong shows them an agreement with Sa-eon's grandpa's signature, which states, "The Hong family can make any demand from them whenever they want." Now in the present, Ina says to her dad, "After our accident, you first pressured the police a lot to find the culprit. Then suddenly you went silent. Why?" Then another flashback is shown where Mr. Hong is standing with a gun to a man's head, and the man is kneeling on the ground. That man is none other than Sa-eon's grandfather. In the present, Mr. Hong tells Ina, "Let go of all these old matters. Next scene, in an interview, Seon's mom says, "I will always protect my son, no matter what happens." Alongside this, a flashback from 20 years ago is shown where Seon's mom locks a child in a room and says, "I am not locking you up, but protecting you." It turns out that this child is not our male lead, Seon, but someone else. Now the mystery from the past is slowly being revealed to us. An old man, after watching the news, calls Seon's office and says, "Tell Seon that he is alive." On the other hand, Sang-yu finds out where the owner of that mansion now lives and is going to meet him. Next, when Seon comes to the office, his assistant gives him the same message that the old man had given, which Seon doesn't understand at all. Then the assistant tells him, "I found out that it's the location of a fish shop." Meanwhile, the old man is packing his belongings to go somewhere. Just then, someone arrives whose face is not shown. On the other hand, Huiju is looking at photos from her trip, in which Seon is looking at her lovingly everywhere. Seeing this, she becomes emotional and very happy. Meanwhile, Seon is on his way to the fish shop and recalls a flashback from his childhood. In it, he was living very happily and peacefully with that old man, but one day they sent him away in a car with someone. After that, we see another flashback where an old man is drowning a child in water, and the child is asking Seon for help. Seeing this, Seon is too scared to move. Just then, the old man comes and covers his eyes, saying, "Let's go from here. Don't look at all this." On the other hand, Huiju is waiting for Seon when someone arrives at the door. Next, Seon goes outside the shop and there is smoke everywhere. Seeing this, he immediately tries to go inside, and here Huiju opens the door to find Ina, who has come to meet her and shows her Seon's DNA report. Seeing this, Huiju doesn't react much, so Ina asks her, "Did you know this?" She says, "No." Then in a flashback, she remembers Seon telling her, "Even if I am not Seon, I will always love you." Meanwhile, Seon sees that the entire shop is on fire, and then he spots the old man and tries to carry him out. But just then, there is a big explosion, and Seon also falls unconscious with them. Seon and the caretaker are lying unconscious there, and the fire is spreading rapidly everywhere. On the other hand, Ine tells Huiju, "I know you agreed to this marriage under your mom's pressure, but now there is no need for you to continue this marriage. Let it go. I am with you." On the other hand, when Seon regains consciousness, he tries to lift the caretaker and get out, but just then something falls on them, and they both fall down again. Meanwhile, Huiju tells Ina, "No, choosing Seon was my own decision, and I have also hidden a lot from him, even the fact that I can speak." Ina is very happy to see Huiju speaking and says, "I really liked it when you used to call me Unni in childhood. It feels so good to hear your voice after so many years." After this, they both start talking about Seon. Huiju says, "We used to live in the neighborhood of Seon's family, yet I first saw Seon when he was 15 years old." To this, Ina says, "It's possible that Seon took the place of Beck family's biological son, but then where did their real son go?" After Ina leaves, Huiju keeps calling Seon repeatedly, but his phone is not reachable. Then she calls the police, but they are not filing a report because Seon has only been missing for 6 hours. Then she tells them, "My husband has been receiving threats for many days, and there was also an attack." Hearing this, they ask Huiju for her husband's name, but she cuts the call. Next scene, Huiju goes to Seon's parents and says, "File a missing complaint for Seon. He has been missing for 6 hours. Hearing Huiju speak, his parents are shocked. Huiju tells them, "I know you are not Seon's real parents, but I know Seon is important to you, so please find him." Saying this, she starts to leave, and outside, the butler tells her, "When Seon was young, both his eyes used to change color, but when he returned here, his eyes were of one color." After this, Huiju remembers the kidnapper, whose eyes also used to change color, and she realizes that he is after Seon because he wants to take his place back, and he had also told Huiju, "No one knows Seon better than me because Seon was me." Just then, Huiju receives a call from Sang-yu. Huiju reaches the hospital on Sang-yu's call and asks about Seon, to which he says he is in the ICU. Now we are shown a flashback where Sang-yu had gone there earlier because the mansion was under Mr. Sung-hun's name, who was the old man from the fish shop. But upon hearing the name of the orphanage, he kicks Sang-yu out. Sang-yu is on his way back when he sees Seon heading in the same direction, so he becomes suspicious of Seon and follows him. When he reaches there, the shop is on fire, and both of them are lying unconscious. Sang-yu rescues both of them and brings them out. Now, in the present, Sang-yu tells Huiju, "There is some connection in all these things. I don't know how the fire started or what Seon was doing there, and what is your relation with Seon?" Just then, the doctor comes and informs, Seon is out of danger, but he is still unconscious. After this, Huiju goes to him and, crying, tells him, "Until now you have protected me, now it's my turn." On the other hand, the real Seiyan, i.e. the kidnapper, whom we will still call the kidnapper to avoid confusion, receives a message from his partner. "Now you won't do anything of your own will." The kidnapper says he didn't know that Seiyan was in that shop. So the partner tells the kidnapper, "Be thankful that Seiyan is alive and unharmed." Now, through a bad dream of Seiyan, we get to know the whole story, and Seiyan is shown living with that old man who used to work for Seiyan's grandpa. One day, the grandpa comes and gives him a black bag, and the old man takes him somewhere in a boat. Just then, Seiyan asks the old man, "Who was that boy with Mr. Jung-ho?" So they silence him. But then Seiyan comes out and sees that his grandpa is drowning his grandson, i.e. the real Seiyan, in water, and the child is reaching out to Seiyan for help. Seiyan is too shocked to move. After this, the old man takes Seiyan inside. A little later, Seiyan's grandpa comes inside and tells Seiyan he was a monster. First, he killed fish, then animals, and then children. Such a monster cannot be born in our family. He kept filling the black bag with corpses, and now he himself is in one of them. Then he says, "Child, I didn't give you a name until now so that I could give you my grandson Seiyan's name." After this, we find out that Seiyan must have had some connection with his grandpa from before. Now, how the real Seiyan survived will be shown later. Next, Seiyan's eyes open, and Huiju is by his side. When she goes to call the doctor, Sang-yu enters, and Seiyan asks him, "How is the person who was with me?" So Sang-yu takes him to them, who are out of danger but still unconscious. Sang-yu asks him, "Who are they?" So Seiyan tells him, "They are the ones who raised me." Hearing this, Sang-yu is shocked. Then he tells him, "My personal life is very complicated." So Sang-yu asks him, "Is Huiju also involved in it?" So Seiyan says, "Huiju is my only family. There is no wrong relationship, so don't worry." To this, Sang-yu says, "Then why did you keep it hidden from everyone?" So he says, "To protect her, because I don't want the people who are my enemies to harm her." And then he thanks Sang-yu and, pointing to the old man, says, "Now only he will tell us the whole truth. He was the one who sent me the hint, but I couldn't understand it. The person who kidnapped the orphanage children and attacked me is the same person. I thought he was dead, but he is alive." Going into the room, Seiyan checks his mobile and finds many messages and missed calls from Huiju. Then a nurse tells him that Huiju had left somewhere a long time ago. Meanwhile, Huiju is about to give the kidnapper's phone to the police because she doesn't want any danger to come to Seiyan. But Seiyan arrives and stops her. So she says, "No, I don't want to distance myself from you. I have found out the truth that you are not Seiyan, and I have also found out the real identity of that kidnapper. He wants to take his place back. That's why he wants to kill you. I won't let you distance yourself from me." Huiju becomes very emotional, but Seiyan doesn't want her to get involved in all this, so he stops her from doing so. On the other hand, Mr. Bake is about to have a variety shoot where Seiyan was supposed to come, but no one could contact him, so they are doing the shoot with his wife. Just then, a parcel arrives, containing many fish cut and joined together. Seeing this, everyone is shocked. Just then, Seiyan's mom follows the delivery man and starts chasing his bike in her car, and following him, she reaches their old family house. There, seeing her son, the mother's love awakens and she becomes emotional. So he tells them, "You had already killed me, so why are you crying now?" And looking at the grandpa's picture, he says, "Exactly 2 days from today is his death anniversary. Do you know how this old grandpa killed me? By drowning me in water, after which I was alive, but my memory was gone. It was only a year ago, upon hearing the news of his death and seeing his photos and videos, that everything came back to me. But hearing the news of his death, I was very sad because I wanted to kill him with my own hands. After remembering everything, I didn't come back to you because I knew you would kill me again." So his mom, loving him, says, "No, I won't let anything happen to you now." Just then, the guards arrive, and he tricks them and runs away. On the other hand, Sang-yu, seeing so many missed calls from Yuri, comes to meet her. Yuri is very worried about him because Sang-yu was also injured while saving Seiyan. Yuri asks, "What happened? Are you okay?" So he says, "Yes, I'm fine. There was a fire incident. Someone's personal life is involved, so I can't tell you anything right now." Yuri tells him, "The higher authorities want to cancel our program. I think a powerful person is behind this who doesn't want the truth to come out." Huiju brings Seiyan to the hospital and asks him, "How did you know I was going to the police station?" Just then, Seiyan hugs her and tells her, "Since the mountain incident, I have been tracing your phone's location." So she says, "I also want your mobile's location." To this, he very lovingly pushes Huiju's hair behind her ear and says, "If I am ever not reachable, wait for me. I will come to you myself, because now I know who the kidnapper is." Huiju says, "Has he come to take his place back?" Seon says, I don't know, but I just want to start a new life with you now. After this, both of them fall asleep. The next morning, the old man, Mr. Jong, regains consciousness and apologizes to Seon, saying, I shouldn't have saved him. Just then, we see a flashback where Mr. Jong opens the bag and finds the real Seon still breathing. Then he couldn't bring himself to kill the child, so he saves him, because he had also become mentally very weak and had forgotten everything. So he thought he would take care of him, but that didn't happen. The monster inside him came out again, after which Seon asks him, where did you bury the bodies of those children? I need to find them so I can bring their truth to light. On the other hand, Sang Yu is sitting with Huiju. Just then he tells Huiju, one day when you were lulling a small crying child to sleep in the orphanage, the principal saw it and told me. Since then, I have known that you can speak. Huiju apologizes to him, so he says, it's okay, at least I got to hear your voice. Then Huiju is about to tell him about her and Seon, so Sang Yu says, I know. When I found out, I was a little surprised and also worried about you. But one thing is certain, Seon was not hiding you, but protecting you. After this, Huiju remembers when Seon had said, my wife is my weakness, and I don't want my wife to face hatred because of me. So she thinks that Seon was protecting her by keeping their married life a secret. The next morning, Huiju comes to her room, and Seon is getting ready to go to an event. Just then, Huiju starts tying his tie. Although Huiju doesn't know how to tie it, Seon starts teaching her. Then Huiju tells him to be careful, and Seon hugs her and says, you take care too. Now we see the event scene. For the first time, Seon and Huiju come on stage together and cover the event very well. After this, Seon heads to the place where Mr. Jong had told him that the children were buried. After that, he receives a call from his reporter friend who tells him not much information was found about the orphanage children, but it has been discovered that there were 2 twin brothers there. One of the brothers went missing, while the other is still alive. Seon tells him, find out about that other twin brother. Next, Seon's assistant, Do Jae, was on his way to drop Huiju home when Seon receives a call from his reporter friend, who informs him the other twin brother has been found. He was adopted by a family and they named him Do Jae, meaning Seon's assistant, the one who was just with Huiju. Hearing this, Seon is completely stunned and starts worrying about Huiju. He calls his assistant, but he doesn't answer. Do Jae had drugged Huiju's water to make her unconscious so he could kidnap her. Now he takes Huiju's photo and sends it to the kidnapper, also turning on Huiju's phone so that Seon can come there. The kidnapper arrives after seeing Huiju's photo. Just then, Do Jae stands behind him and says, Master, is that you? Because he had never revealed his face to the kidnapper before. He hits him hard on the head with a baseball bat. Then, we are shown a flashback where Mr. Jong had hinted by calling the office. Do Jae had also gone to that fish shop where he heard the kidnapper arguing with Mr. Jong. Mr. Jong was telling him, why are you after Seon? He was adopted by your parents. So he says, his fault is that he lived my life for 20 years. I am Seon, not him. Then, he hits him on the head, sets the shop on fire, and leaves. It is then that he realizes that the real Seon is the kidnapper who had killed his brother. Now, in the present, the kidnapper says to him, oh, so you finally caught me, and you kidnapped Huiju to lure me out, right? Now, Do Jae starts hitting him, but the kidnapper starts beating him like a madman. He drowns him repeatedly in the water, and then gets into the car where Huiju is unconscious. When Seon arrives, he sees a black bag on a boat containing Do Jae, who is still alive. He tells him he is here. Meanwhile, the kidnapper starts driving away, but Huiju regains consciousness and pulls the kidnapper's hair. This causes him to lose balance, and Huiju gets out of the car and hugs Seon. Just then, the kidnapper reverses the car at high speed, but Seon moves to the side with Huiju, and they both survive. Next, Seon pulls him out of the car and punches him, saying, what do you want? This name? Your place. Take it all, I don't want it. The kidnapper laughs and says, will you give Huiju to me too? At this, Seon starts hitting him. Just then, the kidnapper attacks Seon with a knife, but Do Jae steps in and gets stabbed. The kidnapper runs away. After that, Seon tries to stop Do Jae's bleeding, and Huiju calls the ambulance and police. Do Jae apologizes to Seon and says, I joined your company to take revenge for my brother. I thought you were the real Seon. Then he says, I was the one who pushed Huiju down the mountain. I'm sorry for that too. After saying this, he faints. Meanwhile, the ambulance arrives, and he is taken to the hospital. On the other hand, Seon's mother asks his father to find the real Seon, to which he says, why look for that monster? Can you admit in front of the world that he is your son? The things he has done. It's better if he doesn't return. Seon's mother says, you couldn't become like your father, nor could your son, but there is someone else who is like them. Then we find out that Seon was actually Grandpa's own son. son, and only Seon's mother knew this. How they knew this will be revealed later. On the other hand, the police arrest Do-jae and take custody of all his computers, which he used to hack Hwee-ju's car and phone. Then, Do-jae reveals, "I started all the planning and how my brother went to that mansion and never returned. Later, when I was adopted by a family, I investigated and found out that the Baek family lived in that house, and it was their child who did all this, meaning that masked child named Sa-eon. After that, he studied well and got a job at Sa-eon's company just to take revenge. A year ago, he saw the kidnapper outside Sa-eon's office. He was shouting, 'Sa-eon, I won't let you go, and I will come back to take my revenge.' That's when he first realized that there was someone else who hated Sa-eon as much as he did. Then he decided to follow the kidnapper because he thought he was also a victim and that Sa-eon must have done something wrong to him too, which is why he wanted revenge. Then one day, he saw the kidnapper heading toward the mansion where Do-jae's brother had also gone missing, and he confirmed that he was also a victim. He got the kidnapper's number and started messaging him, asking, 'Why do you want revenge on Sa-eon?' The kidnapper lied, 'I lived near the lake where the bodies of those children were disposed of. One day I saw his face and they beat me up badly. That's why I want revenge.' Hearing this, Do-jae believed him and included him in his plan. By following Sa-eon, he had also found out everything about Hwee-ju's family, so he knew that Hwee-ju was Sa-eon's wife. That's how the two of them planned everything together. Next, Sa-eon collects evidence about the orphanage children. Meanwhile, Sang-yu tells Yuri everything about the orphanage children and their connection to Sa-eon's disappearance. Then, Sa-eon calls her and asks her to come to the police station to identify the children's belongings. After that, Sang-yu becomes very emotional and goes to the police station, where he recognizes the items as belonging to his friends. Next, he sits sadly with his friends' photos when Yuri comes and cheers him up, fixing his mood. He thanks her for working so hard for his friends and always improving his mood. Next, Hwee-ju tells Ine everything about Sa-eon, Do-jae, and the kidnapper. Hearing this, she is also very shocked and remembers an incident from her childhood. Her brother was crying, and when she went to him, she saw a child running away. Now in the present, Ine tells Hwee-ju, "I didn't think it would be Sa-eon because Sa-eon was quite tall." Hwee-ju says, "It must have been the real Sa-eon whose face our brother accidentally saw." Ine says, "So that means our accident was also planned. And I think Sa-eon was the one who sent me those DNA reports so I would back off. And he knew your mother had fixed your marriage elsewhere. I had told him that guy was no good. That's when he told me, the wedding will happen tomorrow, but not with me, but with Hwee-ju." In the next scene, when Sa-eon comes home, Hwee-ju has decorated the entire house with candles. Then, she comes wearing the dress Sa-eon had gifted her. She looks very cute in it. She gives Sa-eon a contract, similar to the one he had given her on their wedding day. According to the clauses, number 1, he can never take a divorce. Number 2, there can be no divorce for any reason. And number 3, they will officially announce their marriage in front of everyone. And if any of these clauses are broken, a penalty of 2 billion won will have to be paid. Next, Hwee-ju shows him screenshots of Ine's chats and says, "I didn't take Ine's place because this place has always been mine, and promise me that when everything is fine, you will marry me." Sa-eon says, "No, I will propose to you." Then he starts kissing her, and their romance begins. In the next scene, Do-jae is shown his brother's shoe, which he recognizes and starts crying. Then he apologizes to Sa-eon and suggests a way to trap the kidnapper because the phone the kidnapper was using was given to him by Do-jae, and its location could be traced. Meanwhile, Hwee-ju and In-ae go to their father and tell him the whole truth about the kidnapper, asking, "What deal did you make with Charmaine Jang-ho after our accident?" Then we are shown a flashback where Mr. Hong points a gun at Sa-eon's grandpa's head, and their conversation reveals that they were the ones who caused the accident because their son had accidentally seen the real Sa-eon's face. Then Sa-eon's grandpa says, "Your son is dead now, so will you waste your money by killing me? You've invested a lot in my presidential campaign. If you kill me, all that will go to waste. And anyway, your son and my grandson must be playing together up there because I killed him with my own hands." After that, they sign an agreement. According to it, the Hong family can make any demands from the Baek family. Now, in the present, when they find out that their son, the real Sa-eon, is alive, they take their gun and leave. Next, the entire Baek family gathers to celebrate Sa-eon's grandpa's death anniversary. Hwee-ju and In-ae also arrive, and Hwee-ju messages Sa-eon to come to the memorial house quickly. Meanwhile, the police also find the kidnapper's location, which is at the memorial house. Meanwhile, Mr. Hong points a gun at Mr. Bak and says, "Your father said he killed him, but he's alive. Bring him in front of me." Just then, there is a blast and everyone starts running around. But Sa-eon's mother remains completely normal because she had seen the real Sa-eon arriving and had signaled with her eyes. This reveals that she has now met her son. Meanwhile, Sa-eon also arrives but can't find Huiju anywhere inside. Just then, he receives a call from the kidnapper who tells him, "I've kidnapped Huiju again." He holds a knife to Huiju's throat and threatens to kill her. Then he says, "I will make you suffer just like you saw me suffering when that old man was killing me." Sa-eon is following Huiju's phone location, but Huiju says, "Don't follow me. This time it's my turn to protect you. Remember, I love you very much and always will." Saying this, Huiju drives the car at full speed toward a ditch, breaks through the grill, and their car falls down. The sound reaches Sa-eon, and Huiju's phone location goes off. In the next scene, we see the car being pulled out of the water, but neither of their bodies is found, and this is also reported in the news, with the kidnapper's face being revealed. Sa-eon announces in a press conference, "I am not Mr. Bayek's son. My identity is fake. If there's anything true, it's that I am married, and Huiju is my wife, who is missing and can't be found anywhere." He asks anyone who knows anything to inform him. Hearing this news, everyone is shocked because no one knew that Huiju was Sa-eon's wife. In the next scene, Sa-eon regrets not behaving like a good husband to Huiju from the beginning, and imagines how beautiful their life would have been if everything had been fine. Then, we are shown the accident scene where Sa-eon arrives, and the police give him Huiju's sandal, saying their bodies haven't been found yet. Just then, both families arrive. Huiju's mother starts crying and pleads with the police, "Please find my daughter." Meanwhile, Huiju's father starts fighting with Sa-eon's father, saying, "This happened because of you. You didn't kill your son." Just then, Ine stops them and says, "This is not the time to fight." Sa-eon notices that his mother isn't there, so he asks the police to investigate her and goes home to check her car's dashcam footage, which was deleted. Just then, she asks Sa-eon, "What are you doing here?" He asks her, "Everyone is so worried, why aren't you? Even your son is missing." She smiles and says, "I've cried enough for 20 years. I was told my son drowned and died. I searched the entire lake, but my son's body was never found. I kept crying, kept searching. Now you suffer like I did, and it will give me peace." It had been 4 days since Huiju went missing, and there was no trace of her anywhere. Everyone was very worried about Huiju. Sang Yu and Yuri were also searching for her. Just then, Yuri becomes emotional and says, "Huiju has been with me for so long, but she never told me anything. I want to find her soon so I can ask her everything and apologize to her." Sang Yu says, "Then Huiju could be in big trouble because she hid from you that she can speak." Hearing this, Yuri is stunned. Sang Yu says, "But her voice is very sweet." Yuri says, "Now I want to hear her voice too." On the other hand, everyone gathers at the accident site and tries to find Huiju. Just then, the police tell Sa-eon, "We've searched the entire river, but there's no trace of Huiju or the kidnapper anywhere. Although all their belongings have been found, including Huiju's phone, sandal, the kidnapper's knife, etc. The police say their chances of survival are very low." Sa-eon says, "Tell me that when her dead body is found. Until then, find her," and asks, "Why hasn't Sa-eon's mother been arrested yet?" The police officer tells him, "Our application was rejected because we can't arrest such a strong man's wife just on suspicion." Sa-eon says, "I have proof this time. Arrest her." Meanwhile, Huiju's mother realizes her mistake and cries, remembering Huiju. Sa-eon's father arranges a press conference and says, "Our son went out with his grandpa as a child and drowned. After that, to fill the void, we adopted an orphaned child, whom you all know as Sa-eon. That kidnapper being our son is just a rumor spread by our enemies." Sa-eon's reporter friend is also at the conference and reveals the whole truth because he had already interviewed Do Jae and Mr. Yong, and Mr. Jong was the sole eyewitness. After that, a storm erupts in the media, and the police arrive to arrest Sa-eon's mother for murder. This news also spreads in the media, and Huiju's mother becomes very scared after seeing it and says, "What if Sa-eon's mother really killed Huiju?" Meanwhile, Sa-eon's mother sits confidently in front of the police, showing off her power, and says, "What murder? Have you found Huiju's dead body to accuse me of murder?" Just then, they show her a video where she is murdering Sa-eon's grandpa. Then we are shown a flashback where grandpa gives Sa-eon a ring with a hidden camera, but when he was in the hospital, Sa-eon returns the ring to him. A few days later, Sa-eon's mother comes to him and says, "You did wrong by killing my son." Grandpa says, "He was a monster. I did all this to protect my family." She says, "No, you gave your son my Sa-eon's place." Grandpa asks her, "How do you know he's my son?" She says, "First, you gave an orphaned child my Saeon's place, but as he grew up, I saw that he was just like you, and how much you loved him and felt proud of him, but you did wrong by killing my son." Then, she puts a pillow over his face and murders him. This is all recorded by the hidden camera in the ring. Now in the present, Saeon says to his mom, "Tell the truth about where Huiju is, otherwise the police will find out anyway." She replies, "Let's assume that I kidnapped Huiju, but why do you think I would have kept her alive till now?" He responds, "You would have done it to make me suffer, because you want to torment me just as you suffered for your son. And now you're enjoying seeing me in this state, wondering whether Huiju is alive or not." Then we see a flashback where Huiju tried to drive the car off the cliff at high speed, but it got stuck on the edge. The impact was so severe that both the kidnapper and Huiju were knocked unconscious. The butler arrives, rescues both of them, throws the car off the cliff, and scatters their belongings to avoid suspicion. Next, the butler locks Huiju and the kidnapper separately in the basement of the Baek mansion and continues to feed them. Saeon's mom visits the butler and instructs him, "If something happens to her, kill Huiju." This leads the police to the location through the phone, and they head there with Saeon. The butler comes to Huiju's room and tells her to escape. The kidnapper also says, "Get her out of here," but locks his door. Huiju manages to escape. Mr. Beck arrives with a gun and orders the butler to open the door, planning to kill the kidnapper for ruining everything. Huiju, too weak to run, hears a gunshot and faints. The butler is shot, and the kidnapper seizes the gun from Saeon's dad and shoots him as well. The gunshot revives Huiju, and she starts running again. The kidnapper comes out, whistling and searching for her. Huiju hides, but then Saeon and the police arrive in cars and she runs towards them. The kidnapper hides upon seeing this. Saeon hugs Huiju, and she tells him, "The kidnapper is here and he has a gun." The detective advises them to leave and instructs his team to find the kidnapper. Saeon and Huiju drive away. The kidnapper appears in front of their car with a gun, ordering Saeon to get out. Saeon tells Huiju, "Stay inside," and exits the car saying, "I told you to take whatever you want. Why are you after me? I don't want your position." The kidnapper replies, "I know you want to live peacefully with Huiju, but I won't let that happen. You'll always regret being the son of your father. Yui's." He whispers something in Saeon's ear, which makes Saeon look sadly at Huiju. Meanwhile, the police find Saeon's car stationary and become suspicious, rushing to the scene and surrounding the kidnapper. The kidnapper points the gun at Saeon and fires. It's unclear whether the bullet hits Saeon or the kidnapper. Huiju is shocked. Next, Huiju imagines how wonderful life could have been if she and Saeon had lived as a normal arranged couple post-marriage. But in reality, Huiju is sitting alone at home, reminiscing about Saeon and the incident that happened long ago. She wonders, what did the kidnapper say to Saeon that day? She calls Saeon, but his number is switched off. Then she receives a call from an international number, but no one speaks. Emotional, she says, "Saeon, is that you?" We then see the scene where the kidnapper shot Saeon. Huiju gets out of the car to find Saeon lying on the ground, crying. Next, we see that Huiju was dreaming and wakes up in fear. She calls Saeon's office, only to learn that he donated everything his biological father left him. She asks his assistant, "Has Saeon been here?" The assistant denies it. Next, Saeon resigned from the office, and all his belongings were being moved out. Next, Sang-yu and Yu-ri are shown together, now dating. They are on a picnic with orphanage kids when a child approaches Yu-ri and asks, "When I grow taller than Sang-yu, will you marry me?" Sang-yu responds, "What's the rush to grow up?" The child teases Sang-yu, who teases back, making Yu-ri laugh. Next, Sang-yu tells Yu-ri, Saeon donated everything and his donation reached this orphanage too. Yu-ri replies, "Yes, he resigned from the office but no one knows where he is. It feels like Saeon has disappeared." He says, "That's true. The real Saeon is dead." We learn that the police shot the kidnapper that night, killing him. Saeon's mom was sentenced to life imprisonment for Grandpa's murder. It's been 6 months, and Saeon has disappeared, with Huiju still waiting for him, not knowing where he is. Huiju goes to a restaurant with her dad. The waitress recognizes them and says, "Welcome again." Huiju asks her dad, "Have you been here before?" He replies, Yes, with your son-in-law. Seon had taken them there for her dad's birthday just before he disappeared. Huiju returns home, where In-A visits her and suggests going out. How long will you isolate yourself waiting for Seon? I thought you'd forget him, but you can't even for a moment. Huiju asks, do you know anything about Seon? If you do, please tell me. He was with me that day. When I woke up, he was still there and said he'd stay for me. Then he suddenly disappeared in the morning. Huiju becomes emotional. Hearing this, In-A leaves, and we later learn Seon met with In-A before disappearing. Next, Huiju receives a call from an international number, picks up and says, Seon, is that you? But the call disconnects. She checks the country code and finds it's from a country called Argun. Next, she visits Seon's reporter friend and says, you and Seon once went to Argun to cover the war. Can you tell me if he mentioned any place where he might stay? He asks. Why do you think Seon is there? She replies, because someone donated 2 million won to a sign language school in my name, and only Seon could do that. He says, do you really want to go there? But there's a war going on. Huiju responds, it's better to die trying to meet him than to die here missing him. He then tells her, Seon liked the sunset point there. Next, Huiju arrives there and shows Seon's photo at the sign language school, asking if he made the donation. But since it was indirect, they didn't see him. She then asks, where's the sunset point? The principal tells her, you can't go there because anyone who goes there is captured due to the war. Despite this, Huiju sneaks to the point and gets captured. She is blindfolded and taken away in a vehicle like the others. Someone arrives, rescues everyone, and takes Huiju into his car, hiding it in the bushes. Removing Huiju's blindfold and mask, it turns out to be Seon. Huiju is unsure whether to be angry, upset, or happy. Seon says, you always ruin my plans. What should I do with you? Huiju replies, you disappeared like that. You didn't stay either. He says, I stayed. Look, I want to hug you right now, but I'm staying put. Huiju says, but I won't, and hugs and kisses him. Seon kisses her back, and they share a romantic moment. Next, Huiju sees a sunset photo on Seon's phone and says, I didn't know you liked sunsets so much. He replies, yes, because I see you in it, and it gives me peace. Huiju then says, you made the donation in my name. He says, yes, I paid the 2 billion penalty because I'm going to break a clause. Seon is going to divorce Huiju, but I want to marry you with my new identity. We see their wedding, and they move into a new house, hosting a party with all their friends, including Sang-yu and Yuri, who announce their own wedding. Everyone cheers for them, and Huiju reveals Seon's new name to everyone. It's Baekyu Yuan, meaning the one and only love, which everyone likes. Huiju is now working as an interpreter and broadcaster. Dujay has completed his sentence and rejoined Seon. Huiju calls Seon, who says, Hi 406, what's with your tone? You sound scared. Huiju responds, Do you want me to threaten you again? He says, Yes, I want you to always threaten me and never be afraid of me. Huiju says, Then my threat is that you quickly come back into my arms or it won't be good. Seon says, As you command, I'm coming right away. We then see them holding hands, very happy together and walking. And with that, this drama ends on a happy note. How much rating would you give this drama, and which was your favorite scene? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the videos.